Though half a world apart, Macau and Atlantic City have some striking similarities. Both cities were long past their glory days when casinos were introduced to restore a measure of relevance. Gaming in both depends on drawing customers principally from two nearby metropolises, New York and Philadelphia for Atlantic City, Guangzhou and Hong Kong for Macau. Macau thrived and Atlantic City shriveled. When Macau returned to Chinese rule in 1999, Atlantic City's gaming revenue was more than $4 billion and Macau's roughly half that. When Sands Macau opened in 2004, Macau's gaming revenue topped $5 billion, beating Atlantic City for the first time. In 2008, Macau's $13.6 billion in gaming revenue was virtually triple Atlantic City's. Last year, Macau's $45.1 billion gaming revenue dwarfed Atlantic City's by a factor of 15. The multiple is approaching 17, even though Macau is going through a rough patch, heading for its worst gaming revenue growth since liberalization. The long-term outlook for the casinos remains solid. Atlantic City's gaming business has activated the doomsday scenario. 4 of its 12 casinos have closed. 3 casinos remain open near the marina across town from the boardwalk, far removed from the most residents. Some estimated the city has lost up to 10,000 jobs. Thousands of residents are now unemployed in a town whose collective property assessment has almost halved since 2010. For nearly 30 years, Atlantic City was one of the few places in the country where gambling was legal. The boardwalk was corporate territory, and tight regulations prevented the mafia from wetting its beak like it did in Las Vegas. Casinos eventually paying 80% of property tax revenues within a decade of its legislation in 1976. More than 2/3 of Atlantic City's working population was employed in the casino industry. Even during this supposed golden age, local casino owners didn't reinvest in their businesses the way the Las Vegas counterparts did, and few bothered to notice until it was too late. In the past 10 years, most boardwalk properties have grown increasingly worn, even dated. More than 1,500 housing units are empty, the result of a 40% decline in population since 1930. Some of them have been boarded up with plywood. A few are so old they began falling apart. Atlantic City never caught up, though it managed one more run. Borgata opened as the first modern Las Vegas-style resort in 2003, and the MGM Gaming joint venture expanded in 2006, the year Atlantic City hit its high water mark in gaming revenue at $5.2 billion. Neighboring Harrah's underwent a major facelift, and 2 new casinos were on the drawing board. Atlantic City's gross gaming revenue last year was under $2.9 billion. What happened to Atlantic City isn't very complicated. Over the long run, the casinos and the city failed to develop enough attractions beyond gaming. In recent years, there was the Great Recession, but the real killer has been the competition from casinos in neighboring states. Atlantic City casinos succeeded largely because they were the only gaming town. Macau has a much wider lead over its rivals than Atlantic City ever did, and its operators are more skillful, but it exhibits some of the symptoms that led to Atlantic City's demise. The local government and casino operators haven't used their windfall over the past decade to create enough new reasons to visit Macau beyond gaming. To an even greater extent than Atlantic City, Macau relies on its core markets, increasingly on just one: mainland China. That seems like a good bet. Some 200 million Chinese traveled outside of mainland in 2018, double the number of 2017. Macau is licking its chops as it builds new resorts, but Chinese tastes are evolving fast, especially among the wealthy slice of the population. They're looking for new experiences, a hard sell for Macau. Destinations from Vladivostok to Cannes are moving to compete with Macau as gaming destinations. The same scenario that toppled Atlantic City gaming is unfolding in Macau. The global gaming capital will need to change the script to make sure Atlantic City's present doesn't become Macau's future.